The war was about to end until humanity's warship arrived. Part 1. The war had lasted for 47 years. The Galactic Union, a group of 17 different alien species, had been fighting against the Empire. They were cruel. They wanted to control everything. They destroyed planets. They killed billions of innocent people, and now they were about to win. Admiral stood on the bridge of her ship. The Eternal Dawn. She was a tall alien with silver skin and 4 eyes. Her people were peaceful. They loved art and poetry. They had never wanted to fight, but they had given them no choice. Around her, the ship was falling apart. Red lights flashed everywhere. Shields were almost gone. The weapons had stopped working. Smoke filled the air. Her crew worked hard to keep the ship alive, but everyone knew the truth. They had lost. Admiral said, her young communications officer. His voice was shaking. The High Commander wants us to surrender. He says if we do not accept, in 1 hour they will start bombing the civilian areas on our planet. Closed her 4 eyes. Below them was 9, her home world. 4 billion people lived there. Children, families, artists who had never held a weapon in their lives that wanted to kill them all. She looked at the fleet was massive. 2,000 black warships floated in space like a cloud of death. Her own fleet had started with 300 ships. Now only 19 remained. Most were damaged. Many were dying. How many of our people are still on the planet? She asked. 4 billion, Admiral. 4 billion lives had promised to protect them. She had failed. Begin writing the surrender, she said. Quietly, her voice sounded empty like a broken thing. We have no choice left. But before could respond, something strange happened. Every alarm on the bridge started screaming. Every screen lit up with warnings. Admiral shouted, unknown ship coming out of subspace. It is huge. Looked at the she saw something that made no sense. Space itself was tearing open. A bright blue-white light split the darkness between her fleet and from that light a ship emerged. It was unlike anything had ever seen. The ship was big, very big, 4 km long. It was covered with weapons, too many weapons. The design was strange, almost ugly. The hull was covered with scars and battle damage. Strange symbols were painted on its sides in a language no one could read, and it was alone, just one ship against 2,000. What species is that? Whispered. Before anyone could answer, a voice came through all the communication channels. It spoke in accented but clear Galactic standard. This is Captain of the Earth. Vessel Unbroken Spirit, we have been watching your situation. The Galactic Union asked for human military help 3 years ago. There was a short pause. Sorry we are late. Traffic was bad. Did not understand the last part. Her translator said it might be a joke. She had never heard of humans. She had never heard of Earth, but they had on the command ship. High Commander felt something strange in his chest. He had not felt this feeling in many decades of war. It was uncertainty. His officers were shouting and pulling up old files from long ago. The humans, one officer said in a quiet voice, they actually came. One ship growled, pushing away his fear. They sent one ship against my 2,000. This is an insult. Destroy them. 300 warships broke away from the main fleet. They flew toward the human ship at full speed on the Unbroken Spirit. Captain watched them come. He was not a tall man. He had gray hair mixed with black. His eyes looked tired, like someone who had seen too much. his first officer commander, stood beside him. Her face showed no emotion. 300 ships, Captain, she reported. They are charging weapons. They will reach us. In 40 seconds, we took a small sip from a cup of tea. Let us introduce ourselves. Then all weapons fire. The unbroken spirit opened fire. Admiral would later say it was like watching a star being born. The human ship exploded with light, missiles, energy beams, and bullets flew out in every direction. The attack was so thick it looked like a solid wall of fire moving toward the first group of ships. Simply disappeared. They were there, and then they were not. Impossible, whispered. That is 37 ships. In 4 seconds, the battle lasted less than 3 minutes. 300 warships became clouds of broken metal. The human ship had not even moved from its spot. The voice came through the communication channels again. Captain sounded calm, almost bored. High Commander, you have about 1,700 ships left. I have about 8,000 missiles. I am very good at math. Another pause. I am offering you a chance to leave. Take it. This war is over, but it does not have to end with your death. Silence filled the space between the fleets. On the command ship stared at the destruction. 300 of his best ships gone in minutes. He had never seen anything like this. He had never imagined anything like this. The fear in his chest grew stronger, but he was a proud warrior. He had never retreated from any battle. All ships he commanded, surround them. Attack from all sides at once. They cannot stop all of us. It was a mistake. The biggest mistake of his life. Admiral watched as the fleet moved to encircle the human ship. 1,700 warships against one. Surely even the humans could not survive this. But as the closed in, the unbroken spirit began to move. It spun and twisted through space with speed that should have been impossible for such a large ship. Its weapons never stopped firing. Every shot hit something. Every missile found a target. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, the fleet was broken. Only 400 ships remained, and they were running away as fast as they could. High Commander was dead. His command ship had been torn in half by a single shot. The unbroken spirit floated among the wreckage. Its hull was damaged, but it was still there. It was still fighting. One ship had destroyed an empire's army. Stared at the around her. Her crew was crying. Some cried with happiness. Some cried because they could not believe what they had seen. Some simply cried because the fear was finally gone. 47 years of war. 47 years of losing. And now in one day everything had changed. Admiral said, his voice still shaking. The human captain is asking permission to come aboard. Straightened her uniform. Her hands were trembling, but she forced herself to be calm. She was about to meet the beings who had just saved her entire species. She did not know what to expect. She did not know what kind of creatures could fight like that, but she knew one thing for certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. The war was about to end. Until humanity's warship arrived. Part 2. They did not run away at first. High Commander had been too proud. He had ordered his ships to attack from all sides at once. He thought numbers would win. He was wrong. Captain had fought in wars that the Galactic Union could not imagine. Humans had spent hundreds of years learning how to fight. First they fought each other, then they fought monsters from the dark spaces between stars. They had become very good at war. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 1,600 ships were destroyed, was dead. The survivors ran away toward the edge of the star system. The unbroken spirit floated among the broken ships. Damaged but alive, its crew was tired, but still standing on the eternal dawn. Admiral watched the fleet around her. Everyone was crying or laughing or both. 47 years of fear had ended in one day. Admiral said the human captain wants permission to come aboard. 3 hours later stood in the main hangar bay. She had gathered her remaining officers. There were only 7 left. They were exhausted and wounded, but they stood straight and proud. They wanted to greet their saviors with respect. The human shuttle landed. The ramp lowered and 5 humans walked out. Studied them carefully. They walked with a heavy step, like the gravity on their world was stronger than normal. Their bodies were compact but thick with muscle. They wore special suits marked with symbols and decorations. They looked worn, not tired but hardened, like stones that had been smoothed by endless pressure. Captain led the group. He was older than had expected. His face had many lines and his eyes carried a heavy weight. Behind him came Commander, a woman with a calm face. Then came Lieutenant, a large man who moved quietly. Doctor, the ship's doctor, was already looking at them with worried eyes, and Specialist was young but alert, her hand always near her weapon. Admiral said he bowed in the way, on behalf of Earth and the human colonies. I am sorry we took so long. We had problems of our own, returned the bow. Captain, you saved my people. 4 billion lives exist because of you. We owe you everything. No debt, said firmly. We received your call for help. We came. That is what you do. Later, in a private room on the eternal dawn, sat across from she. Wanted to understand these strange beings who had appeared from nowhere. We did not know about the Galactic Union until 17 years ago, explained. He was holding a cup of hot liquid. Humans seem to love hot drinks. One of your exploration ships entered our space. It was damaged and the crew was dying. We saved them. They told us about the galaxy, about the Union, about the war. But you did not come then, said it was not an accusation, just a question. We could not at that time. Face grew dark. We were fighting our own war. We called the enemy the Hollow. They were beings from outside normal space. They found Earth in 2089. We have been fighting them ever since. Commander showed a holographic display, saw human ships fighting against shapes that made no sense. The enemy creatures seemed to slip in and out of reality. The Hollow war lasted 312 years, said. We lost 4 colony worlds. 18 billion people died. Sometimes we did not know if we would survive. Stared at the images. The fighting was brutal. Human ships were torn apart, but so were the Hollow. Even when dying, humans kept fighting. She watched a damaged cruiser fly directly into an enemy ship, destroying both in a flash of light. How did you win? She asked. We did not give up, said simply. Every time they pushed us back, we rebuilt. Every time they destroyed our ships, we built better ones. Every time they killed our people, we trained more soldiers. The Hollow were old and powerful, but they made one mistake. What mistake? Smiled. It was a small, tired smile. They let us live long enough to get angry. The Hollow war had ended 8 years ago. Humans had suffered greatly. Their numbers were smaller, but they had changed. They had taken enemy technology and made it their own, they had become something new. Not conquerors but survivors, guardians. When the Union's request for help reached us, continued, our government argued for months. We were exhausted. Our military was rebuilding. Many people said we should focus on ourselves. But you came anyway, said the exploration ship we saved had a captain named. She stayed on Earth for 3 years. While she recovered, she learned our language and our history. She became a friend. His voice became soft. Before she returned to the Union, she asked me one question. She said, when the come for my people, will you stand with us? He looked into his eyes. I told her, yes, a promise is a promise. Humans do not break promises. Felt her throat tighten. After 47 years of war and death, help had come from a species they had never met. A species that had survived its own disaster and still chose to help others. How many ships do you have? She asked. Here. Just the Unbroken Spirit, but I have already sent word home. A full battle fleet will arrive within the month. 200 ships, and we are bringing more than ships. Showed another display. Technical drawings, weapon designs, shield plans. We are sharing everything, she said. Our technology, our tactics, our building methods. The Galactic Union will never be defenseless again. Looked at the information on the screen. Weapons were far beyond anything the Union had. The engines could cross the galaxy in weeks. The medical technology could heal wounds that doctors thought were fatal. Why? She asked. Why would you share this freely? Finished his drink and set down the cup. Because we remember what it feels like to be alone, to face death without allies, without hope. We would not wish that on anyone. He paused. Also the need to learn that the galaxy has teeth. Now if we arm the Union, if we show them that attacking has consequences, maybe we can stop the next war before it starts. For the first time in 47 years, Admiral felt something she had forgotten existed. Hoping. Meanwhile, news of humanity's arrival spread across the Galactic Union like fire. There were only one of 17 species in the Union. When the other worlds heard about the single human ship that had destroyed an army, reactions were mixed. The warrior species with scales like a lizard demanded to meet the humans immediately. The water beings, who had lost their entire trading fleet, to the cried with relief. The cold and logical species began calculating what this meant for power in the galaxy. But not everyone was happy. On the Union Council World of 3, Grand Coordinator listened to the reports with growing worry. They had led the Union for centuries. Their careful diplomacy had guided the coalition through many problems. Now a species of violent newcomers had changed everything in a single day. They are dangerous, said to his advisors. His crystalline body pulsed with fear. Look at their history. They spent thousands of years killing each other before they even reached space. They are warriors, killers. They saved 9. One advisor pointed out. Today, yes, but what about tomorrow? What happens when they decide the Union is a threat? What happens when they get tired of being helpers and decide to become rulers? The advisor had no answer. Watched the reports of human technology and human weapons, and he felt his control slipping away. The careful balance he had built for centuries was falling apart. He needed to do something before it was too late. The war was about to end until humanity's warship arrived. Part 3. The Human Battle Fleet. Arrived 23 days after the first battle. 200 ships came out of subspace in perfect order. There were carriers, battleships, cruisers, and destroyers. In the center was the flagship Eternal Defiance, a monster ship 8 km long. Admiral commanded the Third Fleet. He was a legend among humans. He had led the final attack against the Hollow. He had personally commanded the ships that broke the enemy's last stronghold. He was old now with white hair and many scars, but his eyes were sharp and his mind was sharper. The Galactic Union watched with both wonder and fear. These ships made their own vessels look like toys. The weapons alone made military experts cry. Admiral had been chosen as the Union's contact with the human forces. She had asked for this job because she wanted to learn from them. The Empire controls about 400 star systems, Admiral explained during the first meeting. The conference was on the Eternal Defiance in a room built for many different species. Their main worlds are here, here, and here. He pointed to spots on a map. These are their big shipyards. These are where most of their people live. Admiral Grand Coordinator interrupted. He was attending through a hologram. Surely you are not suggesting we attack places where civilians live? No, his voice was cold. Unlike the we do not target civilians, but we will target their ability to make war, their shipyards, their supply lines, their factories. We will take apart their empire piece by piece until they have nothing left. That could take years, protested. Actually, it will take about 6 months. Showed new information on the display. Human ships are faster than vessels. Our weapons are stronger. Our tactics are designed for quick strikes, not long battles. We will not meet them head-on. We will hit them where they are weak and be gone before they can react. Commander stepped forward and highlighted targets on the map. Phase 1. We destroy their supply stations near the front. Without supplies, their fleets cannot fight. Phase 2. We hit their shipyards. They cannot replace losses if they cannot build new ships. Phase 3. We strike their command centers, cut off the head. And Phase 4. Met her eyes. Phase 4 is accepting their surrender or destroying their military if they refuse. The campaign began 3 days later. Lieutenant led the first ground attack. It was a strike against a supply station on a moon called 750 human soldiers against 2,000 guards. The humans attacked at night. They moved in complete silence. Their suits made them invisible to sensors. By the time they knew they were under attack, half their guards were already dead, had spent 15 years fighting the Hollow. They were easier. They bled. They died. They made mistakes. 30 seconds to main target. Specialist reported through the radio. Copy. Are the bombs ready on the other buildings? Yes, ready to explode on your signal. Place the explosive against the main power center. They were running around in panic, shooting at shadows, hitting nothing. All teams fall back. Do it now. The explosions lit up the night sky. Supply station, full of weapons and equipment, became a tower of fire. Visible from space. Similar attacks happened across the war zone. Human strike forces hit target after target. They appeared from nowhere, destroyed everything, and vanished before help could arrive. The commanders could not understand it. Enemies were not supposed to fight like this. Back on 9. Watched the reports with growing wonder. In 3 weeks, the humans had done more damage than the Union had done in decades. How is this possible? She asked Captain, who had stayed to protect the planet. We learned from terrible experience, replied the Hollow, taught us that you cannot fight stronger enemies directly. You have to be faster, smarter, harder, but your losses lower than you would expect. We have become very good at keeping our people alive. His face darkened briefly. We had to, during the worst of the Hollow War, every human life was precious. We could not waste soldiers in useless attacks. Thought about this. Military teaching said that sacrifice was noble, that dying for the homeland was honorable. Human teaching, it seemed, said that winning was important and surviving. There is something I do not understand, she said. Your species fought among yourselves for so long. Your history is full of wars and suffering, yet here you are united, defending strangers across the galaxy. How did you change? Was quiet for a long moment. We looked up one day and saw something worse than ourselves. Looking back, the Hollow did not care about our nations, our beliefs, our small fights. They wanted to erase us, all of us, so we had a choice: put aside our differences or die together. And you chose unity. We chose to survive. Unity came later, almost by accident. When you spend 300 years fighting beside each other, watching each other bleed and die for the same cause, old hatreds start to seem pretty stupid. He smiled a little. We still argue. Humans will always argue, but we do not kill each other over it anymore. We save that for enemies who deserve it. On 3, Grand Coordinator watched the same reports and felt his power slipping away. The humans were too successful, too fast. Already other Union species were asking for closer ties with human forces, the wanted human military teachers that were making trade deals. Even scientists were begging for access to human technology. Had spent his entire career building a careful balance of power. He kept the Union's members dependent on leadership. He made sure no single group could challenge his control. The humans were destroying that balance just by existing. He needed to act before it was too late. Late one night, opened a secret communication channel. It was dangerous. It was treason, but he saw no other way. A face appeared on the screen. It was a admiral, one of the few survivors of the first battle. Grand Coordinator, they said, this is unexpected. We have a common problem, Admiral. The humans are destroying everything. Your empire, my control. Neither of us can let them reshape the galaxy. What are you suggesting? A deal. I will give you information about human fleet movements, tactical data, weaknesses in exchange. Once humanity is dealt with, that will leave Union space completely. A real peace. The Admiral thought about this, could see the calculation in those cold eyes. The Emperor will want proof of your intentions, the Admiral said finally. But continue. What do you have to offer? Smiled. Let me tell you about where the human flagship will be next week. Far across the galaxy, in the dark center of space, something was happening. The Empire was ancient. They had conquered 1,000 worlds. They had destroyed 100 species. They had built their power on the bones of the weak. They had never known real defeat until now. In the throne room of Emperor, military commanders gave their reports with shaking voices. The High Commander was dead. 1,600 ships were destroyed. The Siege of 9 had failed because of one ship. Emperor listened in silence. He was old, even for his body was covered with ceremonial scars, each one marking a world conquered. For 200 years he had led his people from victory to victory. He had never imagined this, the humans. One commander said in a whisper, "Our old records mention them. There were warnings. Our ancestors saw them once. Long ago, the records were sealed by order of the emperor. Open them," commanded. The ancient files were found. They were so old they needed special equipment to read. What they contained made even the emperor pause. Ancestors had observed humanity 3,000 years ago when humans were still stuck on one world. A scout ship had watched them secretly, studied their culture, their history, their potential. The report's final words were simple: kill them now while they are weak. These creatures must never reach the stars. But that ancient emperor had been too proud. Humans were primitive, killing each other over small pieces of land. Why waste time on such pathetic beings? Let them destroy themselves. 3,000 years later, that decision had become a disaster. How do we fight them? Asked. No one had an answer. But then a message arrived, a secret message from inside the Galactic Union itself, from someone who wanted the humans gone just as much as they did. Emperor read the message, and for the first time in weeks he smiled. Perhaps there was still a way to win. The war was about to end until humanity's warship arrived. Part 4. The trap was perfect. Admiral led the Eternal Defiance and 40 escort ships into the system called 12. According to their intelligence, there was a major shipyard there. It was supposed to be lightly defended, an easy target. Instead, they found 400 warships waiting in ambush. The system's exit points had been blocked with mines. There was no escape. All ships' defensive formation ordered. His voice was calm despite the danger. We have walked into a trap. Time to fight our way out. The battle that followed would become legend. 41 human ships against 400. By normal thinking, the humans should have been destroyed in minutes, but Admiral had not survived the hollow war by thinking. Normally, all ships focus fire on their left side, create a hole in their formation. We are going through. The human fleet hit the line like a hammer. Weapons blazed. Shields absorbed hits that would have destroyed Union ships. The Eternal Defiance led the attack, its main guns cutting paths through enemy formations. 2 hours later, the human fleet broke through, but the cost was terrible. 17 ships destroyed, 9 more, 2 damaged. To continue, the Eternal Defiance itself was burning in several places. Half its weapons were dead. A third of its crew was dead or wounded. Admiral sat in his command chair, blood running down his face from a head wound. Get me a secure channel to Captain. We have been betrayed. On 9 received the message with cold fury. Someone had given the exact details of their plans. Someone inside the Union. He said quietly, "I need to speak with you now." When she arrived, he showed her the proof: communication records, timestamps, signal traces. Everything pointed to one person. Breath. Her silver skin turned pale. He sold out your entire alliance to save his political position. Hands were shaking, not from fear, from anger. 1,400 humans died in that ambush. 17 ships, and this is only the beginning. If they know our plans, the whole campaign is ruined, finished. They will expect every move we make, unless we move first. Called an emergency meeting. Representatives from every Union species came, human commanders came, trusted officials came. He laid out the evidence of betrayal. Reactions were different. Some were shocked, some did not believe it, some were not surprised at all. But when independent experts, the communications, even the doubters fell silent. Grand Coordinator has committed treason against the Galactic Union, Admiral declared. Under our emergency laws, I am taking command authority. He will be arrested immediately. You do not have that power, a representative protested. Yes, she does. Commander stepped forward. With documents, your laws allow any high-ranking officer to take emergency control in cases of proven treason. Admiral has the proof. She has the authority. The Council will never accept. The Council can accept it or explain why. They are protecting a traitor who killed 1,400 people. Captain's voice cut through the argument. This is not politics anymore. This is war, and in war, traitors face consequences. Was arrested 6 hours later. Human soldiers and security dragged him from his rooms. He protested. He demanded special treatment. He made threats. No one listened, but the damage was done. They had learned valuable secrets. The campaign timeline was destroyed. An emperor, seeing his chance, ordered a massive attack. 100 systems emptied their defense fleets into one huge force. 5,000 ships, enough firepower to burn every Union world to ash. Their target 9, the symbol of Union resistance, the world where humanity had first appeared. They are coming, Admiral said from the medical bay of the Eternal Defiance. His wounds were still healing. Everything they have. One final attack. Can we stop them? Asked. With what we have now, no. They outnumber us 15-1. Jaw tightened. But we have sent word home. More ships are coming. We just have to hold long enough. How long? 12 days. The fleet will reach 9 and 7. The final battle for 9 began on a morning that people would remember forever. The combined human and Union fleet formed a defensive line between the planet and the coming enemy. 173 ships total. Every ship that could fly, every weapon that could fire, every crew member who could stand on the bridge of the unbroken spirit. Captain watched the enemy approach. 5,000 ships blocking out the stars. A wall of death moving forward. Captain, Commander said quietly, it has been an honor. The honor is mine. Open the fleet communication channel. All ships, all crews, you know what is behind us. 4 billion people who never wanted this war, who just wanted to live in peace. Today we stand between them and death. He paused, watching the screens. Enemy in range in 12 minutes. I will not lie to you. We are outnumbered. We have fewer weapons. Most of us probably will not survive this, but every minute we hold them here is another minute for help to arrive. Every ship we destroy is one less that can hurt innocent people. His voice grew hard. So make every shot count, make every second matter, and if we must die today, make them pay for it. The fleet opened fire. The battle went on for hours. Human ships died, but they died fighting. Each one took many enemies with it. Union ships that had spent decades running suddenly found new courage. Fighting beside humans who refused to give up gave them strength. Admiral commanded the Eternal Dawn from the front lines. Her damaged flagship somehow kept working through pure will. Lieutenant led boarding attacks on ships capturing or destroying them from. Inside, Doctor organized medical care on 3 ships at once, saving lives under fire. Specialists died protecting a ship full of refugees. Her last action saved 3,000 civilians. And still they came. By the 6th hour, the combined fleet had only 89 ships left. They had lost over 1,000, but more than 4,000 remained. 9's orbit defenses were failing. Bombs were hitting the planet's surface. Captain, communications officer, reported he had transferred to the Unbroken Spirit to help. The southern continent is under attack. Millions of civilians are dying. Closed his eyes briefly. So many dead. So many he could not save. Keep firing. Keep them focused on us, not the planet. Captain, new contacts coming out of subspace. Human signals. The reinforcement fleet emerged like a wave of light. 300 ships fresh from Earth. The colonies racing toward the battle at maximum speed. Leading them was the unconquerable will, humanity's and strongest battleship, commanded by Grand Admiral. This is Grand Admiral to all human and Union forces. A deep voice filled every channel. The rescue has arrived. All weapons target the enemy flagship. Fire. The command ship, Emperor's personal vessel, disappeared in a storm of fire. What followed was not a battle, it was judgment. Fresh human ships tore into the tired fleet. The enemy's formations broke. Their coordination fell apart. Their will to fight crumbled. For the first time in history, they faced an enemy more determined than themselves. They ran. 3,000 ships turned and fled. They left their emperor's body behind. They left their dreams of conquest behind. They ran back toward their home space, chased by human ships that showed no mercy. The War of the Stars was over. Admiral stood on the observation deck of the Eternal Dawn, watching repair drones work on the surviving ships. 9 had survived, but at terrible cost. Millions dead, cities destroyed, wounds that would take generations to heal. But her people lived. The Union survived, and for the first time in almost 50 years, no fleet threatened her home. Captain joined her carrying 2 cups of tea. He offered one. She took it. What happens now? She asked. Now we hunt down what is left of the military. We make sure they can never threaten the Union again. We help rebuild what was destroyed. He sipped his tea. And we teach, train the Union's forces, share our knowledge. Make sure you can defend yourselves when we leave. We cannot stay forever. Humanity has our own worlds to protect, our own problems to solve, but we will leave you strong enough to stand on your own. He smiled a little. That is the real goal, not to be saviors, but to make saviors unnecessary. The war was about to end until humanity's warship arrived. Part 5. The weeks after the final battle were filled with work. Human ships chased the remaining forces across the galaxy. One by one, enemy strongholds fell. Supply stations burned. Shipyards were destroyed. The once mighty empire crumbled like old paper. On 9, the rebuilding had begun. Human engineers worked beside builders. Medical teams from Earth treated the wounded. Food and supplies arrived from a dozen worlds that had once been too afraid to help. Admiral oversaw the reconstruction of the planetary defense grid. New weapons based on human designs were being installed in orbit. New ships built with human technology were taking shape in the repaired shipyards. Captain had stayed to help coordinate the effort, Most days he and met in the evening to discuss progress and share tea. The council has requested peace talks, said one evening, reading from her tablet. They are offering complete withdrawal from all occupied territories, war reparations, prisoner exchanges, everything we have demanded for 50 years. And what does the Union Council say? They are accepting there will be a formal treaty signing in 3 weeks. She set down the tablet. It is actually happening. The war is ending. Nodded. Slowly. Good. That is what we came for. Is it strange for you fighting so hard and then just stopping? Humans are good at war, said, but we do not love it. We fight because we have to. When the fighting stops, we are glad. He paused. The hard part comes after learning to live without an enemy, building something instead of destroying. That is the real challenge. The empire was not destroyed. That had never been humanity's goal. The new treaty stripped them of their military, forced them to pay for the damage they had caused, and required them to free all conquered peoples, but their species would survive. Their worlds would remain. Some in the Union wanted complete destruction. The warriors especially demanded blood for blood, but Admiral had argued against it. Genocide creates more problems than it solves. He had said at the Peace Council, if we destroy them completely, we become no better than they were, and someday another species will look at us the way the once looked at humans. We break the cycle here, or we become part of it forever. The treaty was signed on the neutral world of 3. Grand Coordinator was not present. He was in a prison cell, awaiting trial for treason. A new council had been formed with representatives from all 17 species. Admiral was now the representative. Captain attended the signing as humanity's witness. He stood at the back of the Great Hall watching leaders from across the galaxy put their marks on the document that would end decades of war. Afterward found him standing by a window, looking out at the stars. You seem thoughtful, she said. I was remembering something, he replied. When I was young, before the Hollow came, an old teacher told me that humans would never amount to anything. She said we were too violent, too divided, too busy fighting ourselves to ever reach the stars. She was wrong. She was right about part of it. We were violent, we were divided. But she did not understand something about humans. He turned to face. We are at our best when things are at their worst, when everything falls apart, when there is no hope left, when any reasonable species would give up. That is when we find something inside ourselves, something stubborn, something that refuses to die. The Hollow learned that, and now they have learned it too. A few weeks later, the human battle fleet prepared to leave. 200 ships formed up in orbit around 9, ready to return home. They would leave behind advisors, teachers, and technology, but the main force was going home. Admiral came aboard the Unbroken Spirit for the farewell ceremony. The ship's crew lined the corridors, standing at attention as she passed. She recognized many faces. Lieutenant, still bearing scars from the final battle. Doctor, who had saved countless lives. Commander, calm and professional as always. On the bridge, Captain waited in his dress uniform. Admir, he said formally, on behalf of Earth and the human colonies, it has been an honor to serve alongside the people. Captain, on behalf of 9 and the Galactic Union, we will never forget what you have done. Your species came from across the galaxy To save strangers, you bled for us. You died for us. No words can express what that means. Smiled slightly. We made a promise, we kept it, that is enough. After the formal words, they stepped aside to speak privately. Will you come back? Asked. Perhaps someday when there is no war to fight. Looked out at the stars. There is still much for humanity to do. The hollow left scars on our space that will take centuries to heal. We have our own rebuilding to finish. Then this is goodbye. For now. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object. It was a coin, old and worn, marked with human symbols. This belonged to my grandfather. He carried it through the first years of the Hollow War, he said. It brought him luck. He placed it in her hand. Keep it and remember that somewhere out there humanity is watching. If the galaxy ever needs us again, we will come. Closed her fingers around the coin. It was warm from his touch. When I first saw your ship, she said, I did not know what to think. You were strange, alien. Your history frightened me. All that violence, all that conflict. And now I understand. You did not become warriors because you wanted to. You became warriors because the universe kept trying to kill you, and you refused to let it. Her silver skin glowed softly with emotion. That is not violence. That is love. Love for your people, your children, your future. Love strong enough to fight for. Was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. We have done terrible things. Humans are not heroes. We are just people, flawed, scared, angry. We have made mistakes that killed billions. We have nearly destroyed ourselves more times than I can count. But you kept going. We kept going. He finished his tea. That is all any of us can do. Keep going, keep fighting, keep hoping that tomorrow will be better than today. He paused. And sometimes, if we are lucky, we find friends along the way, far below them on the surface of nine. A young girl looked up at the sky. She was too young to understand war, too young to know how close her world had come to destruction. But she saw the ships floating among the stars, angular vessels alongside familiar designs. Mommy, she said, pointing upward, look. Friends. Her mother held her close and watched the lights in the sky. The human fleet began to move, one ship after another, disappearing into the glow of subspace travel. They were going home, back to the world called Earth, and the colonies scattered among distant stars. But they left behind more than technology and training. They left behind something more valuable. They left behind hope. The war was over. Galaxy was changed forever. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, humanity continued its journey. Battered but unbroken. As it would always be, the unbroken spirit was the last to leave. Captain stood on the bridge as the ship prepared for the jump home. Through the he could see 91 final time, a blue and green world alive with 4 billion souls who would never know how close they had come to extinction. Captain Commander said, we are ready. Nodded, take us home. The ship slipped into subspace, leaving behind a universe that would never forget the day humanity arrived. The war had been about to end. The Union had been about to fall. Hope had been about to die, until humanity's warship arrived and everything changed.